He thought stealing my login would give him access to everything. Instead, it gave him access to his own destruction. I watched him download file after file, each one a carefully crafted weapon designed to detonate exactly when he needed them most. By the time he realized what he'd taken, his career, his reputation, and his $37 million deal were already burning to the ground. My name is Diana Kim, and for 12 years, I've been the invisible architect behind Meridian Corporation's most successful data strategies. At 41 years old, I've seen 3 CEOs, 5 restructurings, and countless colleagues who thought politics mattered more than performance. I've learned to document everything, trust carefully, and always have a backup plan for my backup plan. What happened on that Tuesday morning at 8:45 a.m. wasn't random. It was the culmination of 18 months of careful preparation, watching Marcus Chen systematically try to undermine my work while positioning himself as the data visionary our company needed. Marcus thought he was playing chess. He had no idea I'd been playing a completely different game. The morning started like any other. I arrived at Meridian's downtown headquarters at 7:30 a.m., my usual time, carrying my thermos of coffee and laptop bag that contained more digital ammunition than Marcus could ever imagine. The 42nd floor buzzed with its typical pre-meeting energy, account executives preparing presentations, analysts running final numbers, and senior management reviewing the slides that would make or break careers. Today was different, though. Today was the Yamamoto Industries presentation, the crown jewel of Marcus Chen's 18-month campaign to position himself as Meridian's next VP of Strategic Data. $37 million over 3 years, the largest analytics contract in our company's history, and Marcus had convinced senior leadership that his innovative approach would seal the deal. What senior leadership didn't know was that Marcus's innovative approach was built on my frameworks, my algorithms, and my client research, stolen piece by piece over the past year through increasingly bold acts of digital trespassing. What Marcus didn't know was that I'd been tracking every unauthorized access, every file download, every moment he thought he was cleverly appropriating my work. I settled into my workstation, the same corner desk I'd occupied for 8 years, positioned perfectly to observe the data analytics floor without being noticed. Through my monitor's reflection, I could see Marcus across the open office, already dressed in his presentation suit, a sharp charcoal number that probably cost more than most people's rent. He was animated, gesturing to his assistant while reviewing what I knew were slides built on corrupted foundations. My computer chimed with an email from IT security. Unusual login activity detected on your account. Please verify recent access attempts. I smiled, opening the notification to see exactly what I expected, multiple login attempts from various IP addresses, all tracing back to Marcus's workstation and his home network. He'd finally made his move. The beauty of working in data architecture is that you understand systems in ways that most people never will. You know that every digital action leaves traces, every file access creates logs, and every unauthorized entry can be not just detected but weaponized. I'd spent 3 years quietly building what I called my insurance protocol, a network of monitoring systems and decoy files that would activate the moment someone tried to steal my work. At 8:45 a.m. exactly, my phone buzzed with an automated alert. Someone had accessed my secure project folder using compromised credentials. The same folder that contained the Yamamoto Industries research, the competitive analysis that Marcus needed to complete his presentation, and 6 very special files I'd prepared for exactly this moment. I opened my monitoring dashboard, a program I'd developed using company resources and legitimate security concerns. The logs were beautiful in their clarity. Marcus Chen's workstation, accessing files labeled Yamamoto Final Analysis, Competitive Intel Confidential, and Market Projections Q3 Q4. Each download was logged, timestamped, and automatically copied to my personal secure server. But Marcus wasn't just stealing random files. He was systematically downloading what appeared to be my complete research package for the Yamamoto presentation. Files I'd named specifically to attract someone looking for shortcuts, each one containing data that looked convincing at first glance but would fall apart under scrutiny. The first file, Yamamoto Market Analysis, contained demographic data that was 18 months out of date, presented as current research. The charts were beautiful, the formatting perfect, but the underlying assumptions would make any recommendation based on it completely wrong for today's market conditions. The second file, Competitive Positioning Deep Dive, included analysis of Yamamoto's main competitors, but I'd subtly switched the data points between 2 companies with similar market positions. Anyone using this information would essentially recommend strategies designed for the wrong competitive landscape. Files 3 through 6 were even more elegantly destructive. pricing models based on outdated cost structures, customer satisfaction surveys that mixed responses from different industry segments, and ROI projections that used exchange rates from a completely different fiscal quarter. Each file was a small bomb waiting to explode during a client presentation. I watched the download logs update in real time. Marcus was taking everything, probably congratulating himself on his bold move. He had no idea that each file he stole was a carefully crafted disaster, designed to surface exactly when he needed to look most competent. My phone rang. Sarah Martinez from the analytics team, my closest ally and one of the few people who knew about Marcus's systematic theft of credit. "David, I just saw Marcus leaving the building with a huge grin," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "Word is he's got some breakthrough research for this afternoon's presentation. Please tell me you know what's happening." "I know exactly what's happening," I replied, pulling up the security footage of Marcus's desk area. "He's about to discover that stealing shortcuts doesn't make you smarter. It just makes you fail faster." Did you just quote Sun Tzu? I don't think Sun Tzu ever had to deal with corporate data theft, but the principle applies. Through my screen's reflection, I could see Marcus's empty desk, his workstation probably still warm from downloading what he thought was his ticket to the VP position. In 6 hours, he'd be standing in front of Yamamoto Industries' executive team, presenting data that would systematically demolish his credibility, our company's reputation, and the largest deal in Meridian's history. "Sarah," I said, opening a new file that contained the real Yamamoto research, "can you free up some time this afternoon? I have a feeling we're going to need to do some emergency damage control." The next 4 hours were a masterclass in watching hubris destroy itself. I continued my normal work routine, responding to emails, attending my scheduled meetings, reviewing legitimate client files, all while monitoring Marcus's activity through my insurance protocol. At 10:15 a.m., I received another automated alert. Marcus was now accessing what he thought were my presentation templates, downloading slide formats and design elements that would give his stolen research a professional polish. He was building his entire presentation on my corrupted foundation, formatting lies to look like insights. At 11:30 a.m., I got a text from Jennifer Walsh, one of the junior analysts who worked closely with both Marcus and me. "David, Marcus just asked me to verify some numbers for his Yamamoto presentation. The data doesn't make sense. Customer satisfaction scores are showing numbers that don't match any industry benchmarks I've seen. Should I tell him?" I texted back, "Trust your instincts but don't volunteer corrections. If he asks specific questions, answer them honestly." "He's not asking questions. He's telling me the numbers are correct because they came from senior-level research." That was Marcus in a nutshell. Rather than admit he didn't understand the data, he'd insist reality was wrong. It was the same arrogance that had led him to steal work instead of doing it, to claim credit instead of earning it, and to believe that shortcuts could replace competence. At 12:45 p.m., an hour and 45 minutes before the Yamamoto presentation, I received a call from Richard Blackwood, our chief data officer and Marcus's strongest supporter in senior management. "David, I need to ask you something directly." Richard's voice was strained. "Marcus mentioned that his Yamamoto research builds on some foundational work you did months ago. I want to make sure we're not presenting conflicting analyses to the client." This was it, the moment when I could either cover for Marcus's theft or let him face the consequences of his choices. I chose truth. "Richard, I haven't shared any Yamamoto research with Marcus. Our analyses should be completely independent. If there are similarities, they'd be coincidental." "That's interesting." Marcus seemed very confident that his insights aligned with your earlier work. "My current Yamamoto analysis is complete and ready for review whenever you need it," I offered. "I'd be happy to compare methodologies with Marcus to ensure we're presenting the best possible recommendations to the client." There was a long pause. "Let me call you back." 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Marcus himself, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Deanna, I need a favor. Some of the data in my presentation isn't formatting correctly. Could you take a quick look at the files and help me troubleshoot?" "What kind of formatting issues?" The charts aren't aligning with the conclusions. It looks like there might be some version control problems." I almost felt sorry for him. "Almost? Marcus, are you sure you're using the most current data sets? Sometimes older versions can cause exactly those kinds of conflicts." "Of course I'm using current data. I got it from," he stopped, realizing he'd almost admitted to the theft. "I mean my research is completely up to date." "Well, then I'm not sure what the issue could be." Maybe run the numbers again to make sure everything aligns. There's no time for that, the presentation is in an hour. Then I guess you'll have to present what you have and hope for the best. I immediately opened a secure line to Sarah Martinez. It's starting, Marcus just called asking for help with formatting issues. He's beginning to realize the data doesn't make sense. Are you going to help him? I'm going to help Meridian Corporation by making sure we don't present false information to a client. If that means Marcus fails, that's the consequence of his choices. At 1:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the presentation, Richard Blackwood called an emergency meeting with senior leadership. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see animated discussions, worried expressions, and Marcus gesticulating frantically while pointing at his laptop screen. Jennifer Walsh appeared at my desk, her face flushed with excitement and concern. "Deanna, something big is happening. Marcus just cornered me in the break room, demanding to know if I'd tampered with his files. He's claiming someone sabotaged his presentation." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I don't have access to his files and suggested he check with IT security if he thinks there's been unauthorized access." She grinned. He went very pale when I mentioned IT security. At 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before Yamamoto Industries executives would arrive, my computer chimed with an urgent email from Richard Blackwood. "Diana needs you in conference room A immediately. Bring your Yamamoto research." I gathered my files, the real ones, and walked across the office toward the conference room where Marcus's presentation was supposed to launch his career. Through the glass walls, I could see him hunched over his laptop, frantically clicking through slides while senior management watched with growing concern. I knocked and entered, carrying a folder that contained 18 months of legitimate research, verifiable data, and recommendations that would actually benefit our client. Everything Marcus thought he'd stolen, but real. "Diana," Richard said, relief evident in his voice, "we've encountered some data inconsistencies in our presentation materials. Could you walk us through your research methodology for the Yamamoto account?" I set my folder on the table and opened it, revealing charts, analyses, and projections that told a completely different story from whatever Marcus had assembled from my decoy files. Of course, my research began 18 months ago with a comprehensive market analysis of Yamamoto's current position in the automotive parts sector. As I explained my methodology, I watched Marcus's face transform from panic to horror to resignation. He knew finally what had happened. He'd stolen carefully crafted lies and built his entire presentation on false foundations. "How does this compare to your research, Marcus?" Richard asked. Marcus stared at his laptop screen, then at my files, then back at his screen. There seemed to be some discrepancies. "What kind of discrepancies?" "Major ones." At exactly 2:00 p.m., Yamamoto Industries' executive team arrived. 5 senior managers from one of Japan's largest automotive suppliers, led by Kenji Yamamoto himself, prepared to hear why they should invest $37 million in Meridian Corporation's analytics platform. Richard made a last-minute decision that saved our company's reputation and destroyed Marcus's career in the same moment. We'll be presenting Diana Kim's research today, with Marcus providing supporting analysis. I watched Marcus sink into his chair as I moved to the front of the conference room, pulling up my legitimate presentation on the main screen. For the next 90 minutes, I presented real data, genuine insights, and actionable recommendations that demonstrated exactly why Yamamoto Industries should trust Meridian Corporation with their analytics needs. The Yamamoto executives asked detailed questions, probed assumptions, and requested clarification on methodologies. Every answer I gave was backed by solid research, verifiable data, and transparent analysis. Everything Marcus would have failed to provide. When Kenji Yamamoto himself leaned forward and said, "This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need for our North American expansion," I knew we'd won. Not just the contract, but credibility that would last for years. As the Yamamoto team left the conference room, promising a decision within 48 hours, Richard pulled me aside. "Diana, that was exceptional work. I need to ask directly, did you know Marcus was having problems with his presentation?" I knew Marcus was cutting corners. I didn't know he was stealing files until I received security alerts this morning about unauthorized access to my accounts. Richard's expression hardened. "Unauthorized access. I have the logs if you'd like to review them." Within an hour, IT security was reviewing access logs, while HR initiated an investigation into data theft. Marcus Chen was suspended pending the outcome, his presentation laptop confiscated, and his access to company systems immediately revoked. The beautiful irony was that Marcus had stolen files that didn't just damage his presentation, they provided evidence of his theft. Every corrupted data point he tried to use could be traced back to my decoy files, time-stamped and logged with his unauthorized access attempts. 2 days later, Yamamoto Industries signed the $37 million contract, specifically requesting that I lead the analytics implementation team. Marcus Chen was terminated for theft of intellectual property, violation of company data policies, and attempting to present false information to a client. But the real victory wasn't Marcus's downfall. It was the conversation I had with Richard Blackwood a week after the Yamamoto contract was signed. "Deanna, the board has asked me to restructure our data analytics division. We want to promote someone who understands both the technical and strategic aspects of our work. Someone who can build teams, develop talent, and ensure we never have another situation like the Marcus incident." "What are you proposing?" "VP of Strategic Data Analytics. Your own division, direct report to me, complete autonomy over hiring and methodology, the job Marcus thought he was getting." I accepted the position that afternoon. My first decision was to implement comprehensive data security protocols, ensuring that no one could ever again steal work and present it as their own. My second decision was to promote Sarah Martinez to Senior Data Architect, rewarding loyalty and competence over politics and ambition. 6 months later, Meridian Corporation had expanded our Yamamoto contract by an additional $22 million. Our data analytics division had grown from 12 people to 35, all hired based on skill rather than connections. And Marcus Chen's name had become a cautionary tale in corporate circles about the dangers of taking shortcuts in a profession that rewards only genuine expertise. The insurance protocol I'd built to catch Marcus became the foundation for our new corporate security system, protecting intellectual property while encouraging collaboration and innovation. What had started as a defensive measure against one unethical colleague evolved into a competitive advantage for our entire organization. I never sought revenge against Marcus Chen. I simply allowed him to face the natural consequences of his choices. He chose to steal instead of create, to deceive instead of deliver, to prioritize politics over performance. The $37 million deal he destroyed was just the price of those choices. The morning he stole my login at 8:45 a.m., Marcus thought he was taking a shortcut to success. Instead, he found 6 files that led directly to his professional destruction. But that wasn't the real story. The real story was that competence, properly defended and strategically deployed, will always defeat theft, deception, and corporate manipulation. Marcus taught me that the best revenge isn't getting back at people who wrong you. It's building systems so robust that their wrongdoing becomes self-defeating. Today, when I train new analysts in our division, I tell them Marcus's story not as a tale of workplace revenge, but as a lesson in professional integrity. The shortcuts you take will eventually catch up with you. The work you steal will never be as good as the work you create. And in a profession built on data and analysis, the truth always surfaces. Marcus Chen thought he could steal his way to the top. Instead, he stole his way to unemployment, professional disgrace, and a reputation that followed him to 3 failed job interviews before he finally left the industry entirely. As for me, I learned that sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal isn't anger or revenge. It's preparation, patience, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your work can stand up to any scrutiny because it was built on genuine expertise rather than stolen shortcuts. The 6 files Marcus downloaded that morning contained his destruction, but they also contained my liberation. Liberation from working under people who rewarded politics over performance, from tolerating colleagues who stole credit for others' work, and from accepting that workplace justice was just a fantasy. Sometimes the best trap is simply the truth, disguised as an opportunity for someone dishonest to reveal their character. Marcus revealed his, I revealed mine. The $37 million contract revealed which one our clients preferred to work with. If this story of corporate payback resonated with you, you've found the right community. Here at Corporate Payback Stories, we share stories of professionals who refuse to be underestimated and prove that competence always defeats politics. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell if you believe that hard work and integrity deserve